Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. For today's card, I started out by creating a background panel using some Distress Oxide inks. I absolutely love the color combination that I used for this background. I used the colors Festive Berries, Worn Lipstick, Wild Honey, and Squeezed Lemonade. You might notice that on the screen right now I have mustard seed, but I actually ended up switching that out for the squeezed lemonade. Once I blended with the wild honey, I realized that I really wanted my next color to be very bright, so that's why I made the switch. When I was trying to pick out colors for this background panel, I actually pulled inspiration from a piece of patterned paper. My absolute favorite patterned paper of all time is the Really Rainbow paper pack from Lawn Fawn, so oftentimes I'll pull that out and draw inspiration from it. So if you're ever struggling coming up with a color combination, try pulling out some of your favorite patterned paper and pick out a few colors from there. After I finished with the ink blending, I taped down my background panel to a hard board, and then I taped this mod stripe stencil over the top of it, and I'm going to go over that with some transparent texture paste from Ranger. This is the gloss transparent texture paste, so it goes on white, and once it's dry, it's going to be really glossy and clear. Whenever you use texture paste on top of Distress Oxide ink, I highly recommend that you don't put any of your extra paste back inside the jar. I almost did here accidentally, but I caught myself. That Distress Oxide ink is actually going to tint your paste a little bit, so if you put any of the extra paste back in your jar, you risk ruining the color of the whole jar. After I finished adding all of the paste, I very carefully lifted that stencil up while the paste was still wet, and I went and washed the stencil with warm water. I then came back and I took my panel off of the board, and again I had to be very careful because it is still wet and I don't want to ruin that stencil design, and I ran my finger along the four edges to clean up those edges of any bumps. Now at this point in the design process, I didn't know that I was going to be cutting those edges anyways, so it didn't really matter that I cleaned them up, but if you're going to be using the whole panel, it's a good idea to clean up those edges. Next, I took the Good Luck die set from Kathy Zilski, and I'm going to cut that word die out of Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, and I used my Big Shot for the cutting. This die set also comes with a shadow die, and I'm going to cut that die out of some Bazzill Licorice Twist cardstock. Now I actually cut those word dies out 3 times so that I can glue them all together and have a really nice dimensional piece. I glued them together by adding really tiny dots of Gina K Connect glue all over the back of each of them, and then I pressed them onto a piece of scrap paper so that I could take off the excess glue so that I don't have any of that glue oozing out of the sides when I put them together. I really like using the liquid glue for this because it gives you some time to move those letters around and get them all lined up. I know a lot of card makers out there really like to use spray adhesive to do this kind of thing, so that's also a really good option. I personally have never tried that only because I don't own any spray adhesive, so maybe someday that's something I'll have to give a shot. Anyways, I glued those 3 good luck words together, and then I took those words and I glued them onto the shadow piece. I wanted to show you this little trick that I have for when you cut out a die and you have all those little straggly pieces along the edge. Sometimes when I use a die, I'll have all these tiny little strands of paper that are kind of hanging off of the edge where the actual cut was made. These are usually pretty small and not that noticeable, so you could just leave them and it wouldn't be a big deal. But sometimes I like to make sure that those edges are really nice and clean. So the trick that I found that works best for me is to take my Tombow Mono sand eraser and just go along those edges very gently. And I find that this takes off any of those little straggly pieces. I used my ATG gun to mount my textured panel onto a piece of Bazzill Licorice Twist cardstock, and then I took that whole panel and I popped it up onto a card base using some foam tape. Next, I took out the Great Things stamp set, which is also from Kathy Zilski, and I'm going to be stamping a few of the smaller sentiments from that set to go with my die cut sentiment. A lot of the products that I'm using in today's video are a little bit older. I think that most of them came out in Stamptember last year, but I really love to use older products. I think it's great to pull out your old stamp sets and give them some love. So I stamped 2 of those small sentiments onto some Bazzill Licorice Twist cardstock with Versamark ink, and then I embossed them with Alabaster white embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. I used some tweezers to help me hold that die cut sentiment, and then I adhered it to the center of my card using Gina K Connect glue. I used my Tonic Trimmer to cut my smaller sentiments down into strips, and I added some foam tape to the back. I then popped up one of the sentiments above the Good Luck die cut and one of them below it. So now the whole sentiment reads, "Wishing you good luck, you're going to kill it." I just want to take a moment to tell you all how much I absolutely adore everything that Kathy Zielski designs. I think she uses the best typography. I think her word choices are awesome. She's just amazing. Anyways, I added some sequins around that sentiment to kind of fill up those empty spaces. I used the Girl's Best Friend sequin mix from Simon Says Stamp, and then I took my Wink of Stella brush and I added a little bit of glitter to both of those small sentiments. And here's a closer look at that finished card design. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you really enjoyed this clean and simple card design using some products from Kathy Zielski and Simon Says Stamp. All of the products that I used for this card can be found in the description down below. If you're new to my channel and you enjoyed today's card, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I do new cards every single week, and I'm going to be back with another one really soon. Again, thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a good day today.